It's a final word with Adam Collins here at the Melbourne Cricket Ground, and a man who knows this place better than just about anybody. Robert DiPierdomenico, welcome to the show. Walking through the seats here, through the Trumbull Cafe, down into the seating bowl in the MCC. Does it still give you that thrill being here? It's been such a home away from home for you for nearly 40 years.
Well, Adam, thank you for the invitation. And it has. Oh, look, it's always great coming here at the MCG. It is the people's ground, but I reckon it's my backyard. So I always tell people when they're in Melbourne, they've got to come to the MCG, check it all out, whatever. Because as I always look at the G, there's so many things that have happened on this field, you know. Adam, this ground here will make you or break you. This is what this ground is all about. You know, with the times that you play in this ground, it's either going to make you as a player and as a person and as a team, or it can just break you down, as we saw in the grand final this year, you know, when the Swannies just couldn't get through that Geelong team.
Yeah, that's right. And I'll note off the top, there is a bit of background noise.
Yeah.
And they are either rigging up or de-rigging a stage here for, I'm not sure what show it was.
For me.
But maybe for you. Well, I suppose it's appropriate given we're here with Cbus Super, making your hard work pay off. You've been in partnership with Cbus for a number of years now with your various television shows with Channel 7.
They're great supporters of mine, and we thank them very, very much, as the supporters of yours as well. So
you mentioned you've been coming to this ground your whole life, but also I'm interested in your upbringing in Melbourne, in Kew.
Hawthorn. It was main Hawthorn. So basically, if you know where the MCG is, I virtually live about 8 kilometres down the road. That's where I was born and bred. My father came in this country in 1954, and my mother came in 56.
Right.
And they were married by proxy over the phone.
Right.
Yeah, so when Dad was working here as a labourer, because the Olympics were going to happen and that sort of stuff,
okay,
he rented a house out in Richmond with, maybe 3 or 4 other guys. They'd just come off the boat and whatever. Then he married Mum over the phone. 2 sisters married 2 brothers on the same day. And then when Mum came over, Dad bought a house in Hawthorn, and that's how I got to play with Hawthorn.
So I think that's a nice link that your dad came out here to contribute to preparing for the 56 Olympics. I know obviously the MCG was already built with the exception of the old Olympic stand.
I mean, all the work going around the place. A lot of the migrants came here. There was a lot of work here, you know, and there was hospitals being built, there was supermarkets being built and that sort of stuff. And I still, when Dad goes, I built that, you know, and I built that, whatever. Yeah, sure, Dad. But at that time, a lot of migrants came here. So Dad bought a house in Hawthorn, and back in those days, I was zoned to the Hawthorn area.
Right.
So you're not drafted there. So that's how I got to play. Or if I stayed in Richmond, down the road, you never know, I would have been a Richmond player, you know. So, well, maybe yes and maybe no. You've
always been very proud of your Italian lineage, haven't you? You're in the Italian team of the century, and you've never sort of shied away from being proud of your roots. Is it Stefano and Antoinetta, your parents?
That's right, yes, Stefano and Antoinetta. Dad's passed on, but Mum's still around, and she's fantastic and in good health. But the thing about that was, you know, when I was I went to Hawthorn at 16, 17 years of age, you know, and you didn't really know what was happening because you're at a club, you're amongst men, and I mean I played football against men, but when you actually have to sit down and talk, and you know you're a kid, you know, with Don Scott and Peter Knights and Peter Crimmins and Calvin Moore and Peter Hudson and these guys there, and my world was changing pretty quickly. John Kennedy is my senior.
Wasn't John Kennedy senior your
principal
at school? Yeah.
Well, I used to get the strap during the day. I used to get, what are you doing here? 5 laps, you know. And then
so he was your principal by day and the coach of the footy club by afternoon.
What are you doing here? Off you go. It's just a whole Hawthorn thing. I mean, who's to know you're going to be there for 19 years of your life? You know, every day you're at the club.
I know we're notionally a cricket podcast, the final word. I should note on the way through that you did play a little bit of cricket as well. Did you bowl left arm wrist spin?
No, not me. That was Merv Hughes.
That was Merv Hughes.
I get Merv all the time. Hey, Merv! Nice to see. People come up and say, I love what you did for us. I love what you did. Thank you. No, I really love it. My family have watched every game that I really love that. Thanks. Oh, we'll see you later, Merv. And then Merv gets me. There's a story which the biologist talks about. and he goes, they're in England, they're at outside the Hippodrome, the nightclub there, and there's a long line, and the bouncer looks up or whatever. Oh, yeah. Hey, how many guys you got with you? Oh, he's got about 11. He goes, in you go. Good to see you, Dipper. So we help each other out, you know.
But did you play a bit of cricket when you were a kid?
No, I didn't really.
Didn't at all, okay.
My brother did. Dino played Hawthorn and played a bit of cricket. No, I was a very, and still am, a very hyperactive person, right? I'd do anything, because back in the day, you know, wasn't the place to be when you're an Italian or Greek or whatever. You got called, you know, names, right? And you grew up with that. Everywhere you went, you know, g'day there, that's that so-and-so, that's that so-and-so. So footy really helped me in a way sort of to mix amongst the Anglo-Saxons. But what I would do, because I'm hyperactive, at school I go cross-country, I'll do everything possible so I can be involved with the social side of it, you know. So,
yeah, interesting that you've got that experience of having been, you know, criticised for your ethnicity but proud of your ethnicity, then walk into a footy club like Hawthorn at 18 with, like, as you say, these big personalities. They've been successful earlier in the decade, and then you get an opportunity to play pretty much straight away in 1975 where you play the one game. I mean, it's a pretty sharp change from being a student up the road to playing a game of footy at the Junction Oval for Hawthorn against Fitzroy.
Well, that's right. Well, my life was, I was under 15s captain at North Kew, and the same ground, Kew Amateurs in the seniors.
Yep.
Two different clubs. I played in the seniors in the afternoon.
Right.
Then on the Sunday I played Bulleen Temp under 17s. That's what I did on weekends, play footy, you know. And then when I had a chance to go to Hawthorn in 1975, and a lot of people say, oh, don't go now, they'll just use you up and they'll put you in the under-19s or whatever. Well, I did, and went there and played 3 under-19s, a cut reserve games. Then Lee Matthews was crook. He couldn't play, and they picked me. How good's that? How good's that? So I always tell Lee, you know, the day that you didn't play, I took your spot.
It's kind of you look at your career, there's that big gap, isn't there, between 1975 with one game and then 1978 where you were playing in the twos. I mean, I guess it's well known that you played 99 reserves games.
99 reserve games. I wasn't good enough to play 100. Yeah.
But many of them in that stretch of time, I mean, was there any sense that you wouldn't get another chance and it might be one and out for you, or did you always know the club were going to eventually give you another opportunity?
We don't know. You don't know, because no one comes up and say, oh, listen, this is what we're going to do, whatever. No, you just go and play, put your head down, hopefully that you learnt the lessons of Hawthorn. But in 1978 when it came, I played every game and ended up playing the grand final.
Yep.
Right? This is my relationship with this great ground.
Sure.
You know?
It's interesting, that little in-between period, quite a lot's going on at Hawthorn. I mean, people think of you as a quintessential 80s Hawthorn champion, but because you're there from the mid-70s, you're there for the 1975.
I'm building up to become part of that 80s.
Sure, but in terms of what you witnessed and observed, obviously 1975 selection.
The day that I rocked up in 1975, right, they just won 71, of course.
Yep.
Then 75 they lose, and then 76 they win, and then 78 we win. From the time I walked in that club, it was premierships.
But even just the very fact that in 75 there's the will they, won't they with Peter Crimmins for the grand final.
That's right.
Isn't selected. Then, of course, he tragically passes away the day after the 76 premiership.
But you know that now. But at the club, we didn't know that.
Right.
It wasn't amongst the players. It was amongst the tier, you know, the David Parkins and these sort of guys, you know, Don Scotts and Lee Matthews, if he's going to play or not going to play. But us young blokes, we were, it's not like all footy clubs know each other's business these days. At Hawthorn, and what's happened at Hawthorn now, it's never happened at our club because we kept things in-house.
Right.
Right. And I never met the president, I reckon, the first time I walked in and about 8 years later, because we were going to lose 3 games in a row, and that's never happened. And he came in and talked to us. Like, this club needs you to win this week, you know. And but today it's all different. But we weren't part of that. But then what had happened, and now the story behind it, and I know Peter's, he was very angry about it because, it's what we play for. We play to play in grand finals. And when your club gets to a grand final, and it's bloody hard to get there, like any sport, the final, you want to be there. And because you haven't got a leg and an arm or whatever, you still want to play.
Sure. And then you get to play in one of them yourself in 78. That's your kind of breakout season. And in the grand final, you're on Arnie Brightus, who, of course, kicks 5 in the 77 grand final. So you're given the big job on the halfback flank.
Yeah.
You keep him, he kicks 1, I think, and you have 21 touches and are widely seen as the best of field alongside Lee Matthews.
Well, not widely, I was. No.
But, I mean, having that chance to walk out here, 102,000 people.
Yeah.
The old
crowd.
MCG.
Yeah.
Of course, that would have been by far the biggest crowd you'd played in front of to that juncture.
Absolutely. But the story doesn't finish there. It actually starts during the week because I was put on the bench, right? And I made the bench. How good. I was in and out of the side,
Yep.
you know. For some reason, Parko tells me the story now. I was in and I was out. Anyway, I got in and I was put on the bench. And I thought, okay, well, I'm being hyperactive, whatever. I can just relax and do what I do. When I have to come on, I'll come on. I was just being part of the side. Anyway, the night before, I've gone out and played cards with my mates. I couldn't sleep, whatever, and it was 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, playing cards, and had a couple, and, because I'm on the bench, right? Then I get to the ground, and I drove my father's pink EK Holden to the ground, walking, and I was even here before the reserves, being hyperactive. I just want to be here, you know? I was even here before the reserves were playing, and that, 20 minutes before the game, Parko comes up to me. All right. I didn't want to tell you, but you're on the half-back flank. We wanted you to get some sleep and relax and whatever. I said, well, thanks for telling me that. Now I was half pissed and, having to play cards with my mates, And Arnold Bryce kicked 6 goals the week before. And just the adrenaline of walking down this field and just, you just glide over and being part of the team and standing on the half-back flank, and I knew it was Arnold, and the ball came down and I was in front and I kicked a long torpedo, and Mickey Moncrief took a mark, and then it came back down, and here I am again, and then just winning the game was just amazing because it's what you dream of,
I wonder what it was like at halftime. So out of the blocks quickly, Moncrief 3 in the first quarter, but North were in front at halftime.
Were they?
Do you remember before you kick away in the third? But do you remember which rooms you were in that?
Yeah, we're in the Tigers room.
Tigers room, so in the Olympic stand.
Yeah, the big stand and at the Olympic stand. And
they're depleted, right? So Blight's off early. They don't have Croswell, they don't have David Dench that year either, injured.
Right.
I mean, does Parko go through you at halftime? Do you remember what the tempo was like, knowing that this was your big opportunity, third year in a row? Second year in 3, you're playing North in the grand final.
Yeah, exactly right, because it was that Hawthorn North, fantastic rivalry, which now is Geelong and Hawthorn and Essendon and Hawthorn. Parko was, you got to keep moving, and his veins were popping out, All right, you played a good half, forget that. We know we can get them, as you said, it's a big crowd, and just running out again. Look, it happens so quick. You think about it for days, but it happens so quick, And the older I got and the more premierships or grand finals I played in, even though we played 7 in a row, you still don't get used to them, but you get more familiar with them,
Then you have to have this sort of, you're a premiership player at 20, you're a star, you've played a leading role in a premiership win. But then Hawthorn have a bit of a decline, and so it goes with you as well. You're a little bit in and out of the side again over the next few years until a bloke called Alan Jeans rocks up, and your relationship with Alan Jeans feels like it was a deep one, sometimes a complex one, but he found the way to get the best out of you, sort of the old-fashioned copper in him, I suppose.
Yeah, complex is the word, I remember, because no one had come to Hawthorn outside Hawthorn. Alan Jeans was the first coach, because he came through John Kennedy.
Yep.
And then Alistair Clarkson's the other guy. Every other person has coached Hawthorn, has been a Hawthorn player.
Right.
So this guy walks in, Alan Jeans, I've just got best on ground, bit of a big head, and you're right, I'm in and out of the team because, I think I'm going all right, But he walks in and I remember the police uniform and whatever. I'm going, what's going on here? Now it's the old thing. Is he going to like me or not or whatever? And I made it very clear to him, this is my team. This is my club. Don't come and tell me what to do.
So you're all at 21 trying to get up
Yeah.
Yabby Jeans.
Yeah. See if he understands who I am, my personality, Now listen, son, don't have to like me. Just respect the position I have. I go, all right, okay, I don't like you, but I respect you, And that, we had the best arguments. We had the best fights. One night he just threw me around like a rag doll. But I learned from all that, But he knew what to do to get the best out of me. And, I know we'll talk about Jeansy, but if I can just reflect on his last days, Jason Dunstall and myself, Peter Curran go in, and he's in a wheelchair. He's in pyjamas, and he's got tubes up his nose, and Buddy, a young Buddy, and a few others in there, Roughhead and that. When we walk in, they sort of walk out, and Yabby goes, my favourite boys are here. Dunstall, what you've done for this club has been absolutely amazing. You've never asked for anything, but you gave everything. And I'm just absolutely proud of what you've done. Peter, you are such a worker. You're one of those working bees that gets everyone together, gets that honey. Now, Dipper. The journalists always used to say to me, why have you taken your best player off the ground a three-quarter time? They go, I didn't. He's still out there, right? Dipper, I've told you before, you weren't a good player. Why did you try and bounce the ball? And they said, I've had enough of you. So I pulled his tubes out of his nose and turned off the oxygen. And he said, if I have it a day right here and now, I'll be the happiest person on earth. I said, I still can't win without you. So I pressed the button, they came in, put it back in him. But he was that type of person. He was that person who would challenge you, Now, you show me what you think you can do, not what, you are doing sort of stuff. And every time, And he's a ripper too because, the 80s, it was good times. Disco balls out, the drink cards. We're playing in 7 grand finals in a row. We're rock stars, right? We're all young. Dunstall, myself, and Terry Wallace, we used to go out Thursday nights, Friday nights, because there's no phones, right?
Sure, yeah.
But what Yabby used to do on a Sunday morning, he used to sit in the sauna. And all the boys would come in after a big Saturday night. We spend half of us together anyway. And we go in there, and Jeremy would be telling his stories and whatever. And then 3 weeks down the track, it'd be Waverley, it's freezing cold. Raining, mud up to your knee, and our shorts on, we've got white shorts on, and they're not dirty, Come in here, Derby, look at your bloody shorts, son. Why don't you do what you did to that so-and-so? You told us in the sauna, you had all these stories that he kept back, and the best one was like, now listen, lads, when I first came to this club, you boys are driving driving Fords and Holdens. Now you got Ferraris and BMWs. You've all changed, you come up with the great stories.
Oh, I mean, and the way you tell it, how evocative. I mean, I think everyone in your group who played under Yabby can all do an Alan Jeans impersonation.
We do.
It's like you're almost trying out to each other. Who does the best one, by the way?
Greenie, because obviously Greenie played with Yabby at St Kilda, and he's got the loudness, and I got the loudness. He got the soft-spoken word, but Jeremy, man, listen, son, the David Halloran used to do a beauty too. I played with David here, 1978, and so it was part of, and Parko too. Like Parko was my reserves coach as well as my first premiership coach. I remember, I'm a bit of a smart ass, as you know. I remember when I got inducted into the Hawthorn Hall of Fame, and John Kennedy Sr., David Parkin, Alan Jeans, Alan Joyce, and my first coach, a guy called John Fisher. He played for Hawthorn, and he was at Kew, and I had a photo with him. I said, what is one thing that you guys have got in common? And Kanga go, we all coached you. No, I made each and one of you guys. And they all laughed. And Parko still tells that story, you know.
So 82, you don't get to play out here in the semi-final where Derm makes his debut. And 83, I guess the turbochargers go under your career again. It's the start of the golden era. You're a permanent fixture. But you do start on the bench in the 83 grand final. A good friend of mine wasn't far away from the bench that day. And you talk of being hyperactive. He says that you're fidgety. You were desperate to get out there. Your memories of having to wait to get your chance in 83 when Hawthorn, of course, go on to beat Essendon by 83 points and set a new record.
Well, you know, it was an interesting year that year because 83, was it? 83? Yeah.
83, you belt stone them and you miss a bunch of
I know that. Was that the first Sunday final?
Oh, I'm not sure what the first...
Yeah, it was Essendon and Hawthorn, second semi-final out here.
That's the next year.
Oh, that's the next year, right?
Yeah,
oh, okay, so, well, no, look, you know, once again, as soon as you hear your name, righto, guys, this is the side. Some guys are going to miss out and some guys are going to, you know, miss out completely. And some guys, now you got a chance to represent your club with the jumper. You know, don't let us down. And Dipper, you know, on the bench, great. I'm in the team. I'm in the team, so that's great. I didn't last long on the bench and just come out and, you know.
Well, Bucky goes down.
Sorry?
Bucky goes down with the knee.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look at my finals records, I go all right in the big game, and especially on the big ground. That's right. Bucky goes down in the corner, and then I get put on, and we end up winning that one. Because having won one in 1978, and then being close in the 80s, early 80s with Yabby coming in, and then here we are with Alan Jeans. Yeah, here's a moment for you. But we didn't know what was going to happen after that.
So 83, you know, you're a two-time premiership winner. You've had an influence on that game. Everything's sort of coming up trumps for you. 84, you have your biggest year yet. You know, you're playing every game. You make the Victorian team for the first time. Then you're referred already to the second semi-final out here against Essendon, which, I mean, 30-odd possessions, 4 goals.
Should have been 5 on this one, right in the goal square. Anyway.
A thrilling game which finishes at the end with Richard Loveridge, isn't it, at the end? Winning goal. Is that your best game, second semi-final 84?
No, I wouldn't think it's my best game. But what that game is this, and you're never out of... Well, there's two games I reckon I've played in finals that you're never out of a game, right? One was... can't think of his name now. He was playing on me.
Playing for Essendon?
Yeah, played for Essendon. Yeah. Come from the Swans. Beautiful player.
Okay.
He's passed on now. Tough. Can't think of his name. I talk about him all the time. Anyway, he took 2 marks on me, and I think he kicked a goal on me early. Now, in the final, you don't want your opponent to be doing that, you know. Merv Nagel.
Right, yep.
Yeah, tough, hard, you know. And he took a mark on me here and then turned around, he had some speed and kicked a goal, and I think, oh, you know, he's going to really start. And then I ended up kicking 4 goals, could kick 5, and, you know, and was just involved in that game so many times for what I did. It's just great knowing that you got the ball in your hand on this beautiful ground, you know.
I mean, let's never speak of the 84 grand final again, but of that day, though, when the momentum swing was on, when Essendon in the last quarter, Baker, Duckworth, etc., Watson, what's it like being on the other side of that? Because you'd only experienced, you know, the triumph of 78-83, the second semi-final a fortnight earlier.
Yeah.
When Essendon are running over you in the last term, what's that feeling like on the biggest day? 100,000 people here.
Yeah, you're thinking, okay, they've got to come back sometime, right? But you're thinking, okay, we're 5 goals in front. 5 goals, right? So, you know, just steady down, steady. But it was just like a tsunami just come through, you know. Players were playing in different positions and we're thinking, okay, righto, where's my man and what's going on and, you know, how can I get involved? But you never got near the ball because Essendon just went whooshka, you know. And a lot of people say to me, Yabby tell you to go and get, what's his name? I said, no, because I went to the tribunal and I actually got off because as I'm running through, I've actually hit Walsh here. You know, there, and people said, "Oh, Yabby told you to do that to slow the game down." I said, "No, Yabby never, not once, or maybe once, not once did he say, you know, we've got to do this or else we won't win." You know what I mean?
But I guess that's probably the time of your career. So there's two things, right? 84 is by far your biggest output statistically, that you've had a really great season.
I've had a great season,
500 touches, all that kind of thing you can
yeah.
measure it by. But the suspensions are piling up as well. You're spending a lot of time in front of the tribunal. You get a bit of a name for being a guy who can fix blokes up when you need to.
Right.
Do you think that helps you reputationally, that people were scared of you? Or do you think it sometimes was counterproductive because the umpires were watching for you?
I never worry about the umpire because I'm not a dirty player. But in the 80s, there were times that you can knock a bloke off when he's trying to shepherd or vice versa. Hey, don't worry, we were hunted as much as we hunted, right?
Yeah.
And then when the time came, there was never a time when the ball wasn't near us. It wasn't, one at the back or whatever. I got unlucky a few times, but as one time Neil Busy was the chairman
Chair of the tribunal, yeah.
And I walked in and I said, "Are you busy?" He goes, "Yeah." He goes, "I'll come back tomorrow," And Fingers, Ian Finlay, stop talking, because I always try to lighten the mood. Did people fear me? No, I didn't want them to fear me. I mean, I was a hard player.
Yeah.
I was head over the ball.
Sure.
I didn't go away from that. Then as I got a lot older and I got more flamboyant because I got more skills in me. I ended up being a very good kick. Where prior I wasn't that good, but because of the training we did, I mean, I was hitting Dunstan on the chest and Dermy on the chest and all that sort of stuff.
Well, you're one of the first players to kick both feet, right? Like you had
both
sides of the body.
I had an opportunity to learn, and I became quite confident within my own. But what I was good at and how I got to end up on the wing, now I'm playing 105 kilos. There's no players playing on the wing at 105 kilos, right? It's because being that hyperactive, I can run all day.
Yeah.
In the 20K time trials, I'll be 1 or 2.
Right.
As a big fella, I could run. So if you can run a big fella, stick him in the middle. Stick him on the wing, see what he can do. But I can tackle as well. And then that's where it all started. It is 105 playing against Robbie Flower, with 76 kilos, So
you
it changed my life, and it changed footy's life in a way too.
Well, I mean, you being on the wing through that stretch of time, all of those grand finals from sort of 84 onwards, have a similar season to 84 and 85, of course, losing the grand final here again, where Essendon were just a stronger side. But then 86 rolls around. And, I mean, you've told the story many times, but never knocked back a free feed at the Southern Cross Hotel in September. I mean, you win the Brownlow after a couple of best-of-field performances in the middle of the season, along with Greg Williams. But interesting that you don't get a vote in round 21 or round 22 when you have 33 and 35 touches respectively. You shouldn't have just levelled that Brownlow. You probably should have won it outright.
I agree with that. And Williams reckons he can get a tucker who's got 40 possessions. I mean, come on, man.
It goes both ways. But, I mean, there's this different... You're into a new stage of your career here, aren't you? And you cap that with your third premiership against Carlton here in 86. You're a three-time premiership player. You're still in your... I guess by that stage you're in your late 20s and the world's your oyster.
Whatever. It was funny though because at that time we had a lady come to the club, Karen Inge, and she was like a dietitian, right? Now you got to remember 80s football really started to become professional around about 82, 83, 84, where clubs were looking outside the world. David Parker was always the one that, because he had that university scientific mind,
Uh-huh.
And guys like Brian Dudes in the past were a fit guy, and Don Scott or whatever. So here we are, I'm playing 105 kilos, I'm going all right, Then Karen came, and Karen had myself and Dermy and Dunstan in the Fat Club, right? And we come back and we started eating bananas and muffins and stuff like that instead of steaks and fish and chips and pasta or whatever.
Right.
And I stripped down to about 94, 95, and I was faster. I was a lean machine.
Right.
But I still could run and whatever. And that's the reason why I believe that I had a lot more confidence in staying in a contest or whatever. and I was rock hard, because before all I was doing like big weights and whatever. I didn't touch weights, I did push-ups, sit-ups or whatever, but I was lean, I was really good, yeah.
This is also, in terms of off the field, your stardom. I mean, you've won the Brownlow, you've won these flags. It's kind of the Dipper and Dermot show really there through the later stage of the 80s when,
We're just starting to get TV appearances.
I was going to say, you're on telly all the time.
And stuff like
you're
that.
highly sought after. I mean, I think that's when the Coulda-Beans write the
song
about
they wrote
you.
the song, yeah, that's right.
It's probably my, not to make it about myself, but my earliest memory as a kid bouncing up and down on my grandmother's knee to that song.
I'm DiPierdomenico, DiPierdomenico, ho-ho.
And so it goes. And, you've got this larger-than-life persona, but you are backing it up on the field. I suppose the 87 grand final is a day that you won't look back on fondly, but it's, both of you with the long hair, the big mustache in your case, which you've kind of had ever after as a bit of a trademark, but warm day here at the G. Dermy's a bit underdone. Reece Jones, brilliant. You guys don't quite get the job done, but the attention around you two blokes and others, but especially you and Dermot, that must have been an intriguing, fascinating time in your life.
Well, I felt that I played really well in the first half.
Yep.
I was flying.
I think you're named as Hawthorn's best in a losing effort.
Yeah,
yep.
Yeah. But I don't know what happened in the second half. I know that. Let's go back the week before, right? Yep. This is another time that you know that you're never out of a game of footy. So I'm playing the wing against Melbourne at Waverley Park, and the wind changes every quarter. But it does.
Yeah.
As soon as we go one way, the wind will blow the other way for Melbourne. They had the wind for four quarters, right? They're unbelievable. And I've played one of my worst games. I've played in 6 different positions. I was even off the ground at one stage, and I was a full forward at one stage. Right? They were trying to get me into the game. Tony Campbell, the guy I played on, he had a chance to kick a few goals, but he missed, whatever. And I was a bit lost. I didn't know what to do. Sometimes you get in the way, and you fall over yourself, and some days the ball just bounces. So I'm standing next to Chris Langford, our full-back, in the dying seconds of the game. And he goes, "What are you doing?" I said, I'm not doing anything. And we're down, right?
Yeah.
And then he goes, "Move, get!" So I just ran up the field. And then Michael Tuck marks the ball around about centre forward. Then I keep going up the middle. And there's another player, I just can't remember who marked the ball. And I thought, right, I'm going to get away from here. So I ran across to the pocket just to get out of the way. And Jimmy Steins follows me.
Right.
And there's Buckenara, who got the 15 metres. You're never out of a game. Now, the reason why because I met Jimmy in Ireland in 1984 when he was 14 years of age. And he came in and showed us how to kick the Gaelic ball and whatever. And we've had a great association since, right? And I'm thinking, I'm just getting out of the way. Buck is just about to mark the ball. I run across. He follows me through and get the 15 metres. So you think, wow, you're never out of a game, right? And then the week after, I started very well. But half time, we just hit a wall. We just hit an absolute wall, and I'm not quite sure why, whatever. But they got up and won because we beat them the year before.
You mentioned Ireland. You were part of that team in 84, wasn't it? The first of those,
84,
those games.
Yeah.
You kind of always had a hand in that, didn't you? When Australia had that international rules series later in your retirement, you've always had an enjoyment.
Yeah, well, I went in 84 to Ireland. I went playing 86 and 88, and then I've been involved for 20 years with the teams that we brought over there and whatever. It's been an amazing journey, that's for sure.
The chance to go back-to-back doesn't play out in 87. Then in 88, I suppose that's the inspiration where you guys are unstoppable. You only lose 3 times. You're straight through via the second semi-final. I mean, as Dermot said in the past, you were never going to be beaten.
But don't forget why. We've got a new coach.
Of course, Alan Joyce in
Alan Joyce, new coach. So for us, sometimes, a different voice, He did things a little bit different, but didn't change much.
Right.
Because once again, Alan Joyce was the coach who played at Hawthorn, then went to Fremantle and coached the premiership with then came back and became the club secretary, right? And then when Alan Joyce had the brain hemorrhage, the club walks in and goes, "Oh, you're coaching Hawthorn."
Right.
What? Yeah, you're coaching. Off you go. And he had these guys, and he thought, I'm not going to change a lot of you guys, whatever. and he couldn't really. And in a way, we were sort of mucking around with him. We were sort of like at training drills, we were trying to get him and have a bit of a laugh. And we lost 2 games, I think.
Yeah, 2 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure why we lost, but he was part of that. He was part of that build-up, Joyce. And I remember one game. I got a feeling, Adam, that it was 1988 that we went to. Did we go to Perth and play West Coast Eagles? And we were one of the first sides to beat them over there. And I've never seen the coach do this before, and I use this story. Yeah, what does Alan Joyce say to, Langford and Buckenara and Dermott and Dunstall and Dipper and Pritchard, all these guys play premierships and whatever. You got to come up with something new,
right.
So he had a butcher's paper, and he wrote the side out, right? It said, righto, Chris Langford. Chris Langford was an under-15 champion, a sprinter, a high jumper and whatever, and went through the whole list, about what they have done in the past as juniors. Why is this team together? Because we all come from different parts and we all had other tricks up our sleeve as well. And I thought, wow, I didn't know that about you, or I didn't know about that. That really got me intrigued. And I thought, and we went out and won. And I thought, I've got a feeling it's because we had a lot more admiration for our teammates after hearing that little story, But anyway, so 88 we go out, and it was a strange game because it was wet.
Yeah.
It was wet. And I remember Melbourne, they were on top of us in the first 5 or 6 minutes. And then Paul Abbott ended up kicking 6. I think I gave him 4 of them.
I was going to say, you put him lace out.
Yeah, lace out.
Goal,
whatever. And but the game just went away from Melbourne. But in the first, I reckon, 10 minutes, if people watch it, Melbourne were all over us. And they had a shot of goal 2 or 3 times. They just kicked the point. And then there's a great piece of play of Gary Ayres in the middle. He started from the halfback, pushing the ball, and blokes in there punching and bumping, all really hard head over the ball footy, and and he got the ball out, or as he got the ball out on the right hand side coming through, and that was Langford actually. Langford doing that and gave it to Ayres. That was a beautiful bit of play. That was really good footy.
I reckon there are 3 iconic moments of that day. There's that kind of rolling maul goal.
Yeah.
There's the Burton banana kick from behind us here in the forward pocket.
Yeah.
And then there's your left foot snap.
Yeah, well, I was on
what's now the AFL members, Jamie Morrissey, slapping it across you about 20 metres.
Because I was on the practice wickets where they had them there, and I thought, I could send him the ball, or I'll have a go. And I was pretty confident on my left foot, and went through, and I told Yobi, sometimes I can be flamboyant.
So it pisses down with rain for the first half. What's going on when you're? Which rooms are you back in the Richmond rooms that day?
Richmond rooms, yeah. We always use the Richmond rooms.
Right, and at half time they put on the big screen the 100 metres final from the Seoul Olympics.
Did they?
Where Ben Johnson, wins
in
right, 983, and of course chalked off later for drugs. But very weird day because the sun comes out after half time, and it might be. I mean, certainly watching it back, it feels like the most chilled out grand final ever played in the second half.
Grand finals aren't chilled out.
But I mean, the second, when you're so. What my point is, you're ahead by 10 goals at half time, and it's so.
But even then. 3/4 time, you look at the board, you're in front, right? And we've been there before.
Right.
Boys, just finish this game off. Just finish the game off, right? Just get in there, do what you need to do, and don't give these guys a sniff, right? Because we need to finish. We need to win. We need to win.
Yeah.
And it's not won at that moment,
In the end, you win by 96 points, smashing your own record from.
It's not bad, is it?
From 83. It was Dunstall 7, Abbott 6, Burton 5, whatever it is. It's a hiding, and it's an iconic marker. It's when probably Hawthorn's at their best in that era. But in 89, you have almost the identical season personally, where you've, again, had big numbers throughout the season. Dunstall has a very similar season, 138 goals after 132 in 88. Once again, only 3 losses. Once again, through the second semi, this time Essendon at VFL Park, with Derm taking out Van der Haar with that hip and shoulder on the half-forward flank. One other thing that happened in 89 that you weren't part of but happened here at the G was the State of Origin game between Victoria and South Australia, where seemingly half the Hawthorn team were playing. Huge crowd here. It's
Tony Hall.
First time I came to the G as a little boy. My dad took me along I guess I would have been nearly 5. And Tony Hall being tackled by Andy Collins. And that plays a big role in your season because Hall's leading the best and fairest at that point, taken down by Andy Collins, and it probably spells the end of State of Origin football, but has a big effect on your side, and injuries become a theme towards the end of 89.
It does, and actually Tony Hall was my training partner. Being older than him, when we used to go at Glenfriel, where we ever trained, I always used to compete myself against Tony Hall because he was fit, he was strong, it was hard, it was young. If I could stay with him and be with him, I knew I'm going right? And training was part of that because we trained hard. We did a lot of one-on-one stuff, like man-on-man stuff, and I was always against Tony Hall. Times I got beaten, times I stuck with him, and so when he went down, I felt so bad for him because he deserved a spot in that grand final, no doubt about it. But 89 it was different to us too because we get Jeansy back, and just to hear his voice again, hey, the old man's back, how good's this? And
the transition too, right? So Joyce comes in for a year, slips back, and I guess it's the Hawthorn way, isn't it, that there was no discombobulation.
Well, here's another one for you. A lot of people don't know this. And the reason why Jeansy came back is Hawthorn went to him and said, now Michael Tuck is Gary Ablett, the number one player that we all feel that kicking 15 goals personally. He was doing this week in, week out, right?
Yeah.
We've seen players, come and go, but Gary Ablett's always going to be there. You could mark, he could jump, he could run. He had no fitness bust. That's the only thing, right? Which when I played against him on the wing, I got him a couple of times that way. But besides that, he'd jump on your head and run away, and he's strong, as we all know. And he played the Hawthorn, don't forget. And Jeansy got rid of him, right? Because Jeansy had been a policeman, and Gary at the time wasn't focused, right? And there's a little box that you sort of stand in. There's Dermot, myself, all the boys there. We pushed the box, but Gary went over the box. So Michael Tuck came to the club and said, Gary wants to come back to Hawthorn. And the club said, what? He wants to finish his football at Hawthorn.
Right.
Where his brothers finished. Kevin, Jeff, Graham, and Michael Tuck, of course, his brother-in-law.
Yep.
And then they said, wow. So I said to Yabby, got great news for you. You're coaching again, and Gary Ablett wants to come back to the club. How good's that? All you got to do is fill this form, right? And Tucky will take it over, and we've got Gary for the year. And Jeansy goes, yeah, that's really good, but either I coach if Gary doesn't come, and I don't want him at the club, or you take Gary and I don't coach. Up to you. So you imagine the club thinking, what do we do? He's had a brain hemorrhage. We've got one of the greatest players of all time want to come back to the club. So they went with Jeansy, and then Gary Ablett kicks 9 goals straight on the day. On the day, it was just, and you can make a movie out of it,
Well, I mean, that day probably warrants a movie. It certainly had that wonderful book written by Tony Wilson a couple of years ago, and I don't know how many documentaries have been made about 89, and you've been part of all of them, I suppose, but your involvement that day personally, running back with the flight is Burton in front of Stephen Hocking after being taken out by Yates off the wing.
Yeah.
But you're in a punch-on with Buse and Buddha and 3 of them in a headlock at the same time. So you wouldn't actually see Burton because they clearly...
No, I saw it.
You saw it despite the fact that they were all over you.
No, because of the fact that I know German inside out, right? And, the more you belt him, the more he comes out. He fucking loves that shit. He loves it. Don't go out and hit Doom because he's just go, righto, I might have a broken nose and my spleen's no good or whatever, but if that's the best you've got, when he got belted, we sort of I just missed that because the ball went down this way and Ablett kicked the goal. Yeah. German just running back into that space, and that's what the football's about, And then on this side here, all of a sudden I felt something in my eyes like dirt or whatever, and I thought, I've got 2 blokes here. I've got Buse and Brunt. I didn't know who they were in a way. Yeah. And then Hocking had my head. He's just smashing my head in, right? But if I let go, it's like the tripod, I'm going to be on the ground with these blokes. And then, like slow motion, I can see, I've seen the footage of it, right? And there's another Geelong player coming in. I think it was the ruckman was coming in as well. How many people ask me, hey, Dipper, can you put me in the headlock? Doing right, here we are. Is that what I'm known for?
I mean, throughout that first term, which is just complete carnage, right? Hawthorn kick away, but you slide in at one point in a way that, I mean, you could easily get your head taken off, and you push the ball out to Platten. Then they target you. Buddha whacks you.
Yeah.
Kick that, Abuse whacks you as well. Kick a goal from 55. You're part of setting up Curran for another goal.
I've kicked a goal from 55, right?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, how good is this?
Yeah.
Because in the grand final, you want to get involved.
Yeah.
Get a smack in the mouth, give one, get a tackle, just get involved early, and then you know where you're at, right? You can't be just chasing a red ball around and not get touched in the second quarter or whatever. So when I kicked that goal out there, Kondo gave it to me. It was nice kick, bang. I looked back, and my hair's flowing, and I'm looking. I thought, oh, yeah, this is easy. Had a great kick, and I run past. I see the scoreboard, this gladiator running past, and I think I got abused, or one of them. I said, relax, boys, relax. It's a great game. It's only early, all that sort of shit,
So I guess what I'm building to is I don't think the Ablett hit on you's out of context. Like, it feels like you're building into a great personal grand final. It just feels that way watching the first. Like, you're probably equal for Norm Smith at quarter time, right? And then Ablett takes you out and breaks your ribs and busts your lung open. I mean, it put your life in danger, and we'll come to that in a moment here, but that must be, do you even remember the hit? I mean, I suppose it's such a brutal thing. Yeah. And that's just in front of us here. Like, that can't be any more than 30 metres from where we're sitting right now.
Yeah. There's three words you don't want to hear on grand final day, and three words you never want to hear in the footy ground. It's yours, Dipper. It's yours? Okay. Dipper? Oh, why me? Because that's what you train for.
Sure.
The voices and the loud noise and the voice. Dipper, it's yours. It's yours.
Running back with the flight.
And I'm going back, and I know what's coming. But in our game, you can't look left or look right or whatever. And of course, Gary, big bolt, And as soon as he hit me, I've gone, right, yeah. But would I do it again? I'll do it tomorrow. Oh, yeah. I mean, look, end up playing through the game and end up, kicking a goal and the first bit. But then I realised I've seen the game a couple of times that I've actually kicked 2 or 3 points as well. I've got no idea of that. And they were pretty good kicks, and they never made 3 goals.
Well, the reason I said you might not remember it is because your eyes in that last quarter as you're running around doing your best, because you've lost by that point Ayres and Platten, you can't return to the field.
I'm pumped up like a Michelin man. My voice is going like this. I'm running around going, hey, kick it to me. And then when I got Buddha over here, Buddha, I'm coming. And I did smack him because, I try to square up, whatever. Yeah. But he's tough as nails as well, you know. And come on, Buddha, get up. Come on. Oh, come on, get up. Umpire runs in. Dipper, I'm reporting you. What? I remember people leaning over, just here, yeah, all that sort of stuff. And it was just emotions that were going through. And but when that siren was about to go, I had no idea, right?
Yeah.
So I'm on the wing here, or half-back flank here, wing, and the ball went to the other side, and I ran over across the centre, threw myself on the ball.
Yep.
And there was about to be a throw-up. Then Tucky grabbed me because we've won. He squeezed the last bit of breath I had anyway. So I'm the last person to touch the ball in 1989 before it came AFL. They are VFL with AFL in 1990.
Of course it did. Yeah, but 28 seconds
to go. So the last touch of the ball
you're involved in both ball ups, aren't you? I mean, the second one appropriately being abused after what happened earlier today. Yeah. You take him out with effectively a body slap. It's more a wrestling move than a football tackle. And then, as you say, you slump into Tuck's arms, and you're barely even there.
I'm gone. And Tucky's got a split webbing as well.
Yep.
A lot of players had a lot of injuries as well. Dermott and Pritchard, and there was the young half-back flanker for Geelong, the Adelaide boy. A broken jaw with Buddha. There's carnage everywhere. And remember E.J. Whitten, the great E.J. Whitten, came onto the ground because he was going to give the medals away.
That's right, yeah.
And he had this handshake. E.J. was known for his handshake. E.J. was known for his handshake like it would crush a cup. Every time he took your hand, you knew it was coming. And I'm leaning like this on the trainers, and he goes, Dipper! And he goes, "Oh my God, you're right, Dipper!" And grabbed my hand. I said, "Oh no." And he just held my hand. "You'll be okay, mate. You'll be okay." And then he went off, and I went into the back of an ambulance.
I mean, this is an oft-told story, but you in the back of the ambulance with the punctured lung, having been instrumental in the final moments of the grand final moments earlier, and I mean, for a couple of minutes there, it's touch and go, isn't it, for you?
Well, it is. I don't make any bones about it. I didn't know, but the ambulance people gave me 2 adrenaline shots. The last thing I need is adrenaline. And with a high voice, I was like the ambulance, "Way, what's going on?" And I go to St Vincent's Private up the road, and they put me on a cold tray and under these fluorescent lights, and no one knew exactly what was going on, and it was so quiet. And then all of a sudden, someone holds my hand, and I didn't know who it was. It was actually the priest of the hospital, and the softly spoken words was just saying, "It's going to be okay. It's going to be fine," and I was happy because I was in someone's hands, And all of a sudden, this nurse just comes through the gate, the doors, and she cuts my jumper open, and gets that looked like a knitting needle, and just went bang into my chest.
Wow!
And she saved my life, because then they found out I had a punctured lung.
They didn't know at that point.
No.
Okay.
And she saved my life in a way, and I still have contact with her. And then I was in hospital for 9 days, and on the 7th day when I rose, well, 2 people have done it. Come on, Adam. One took 4, I took 7.
After being given the last rites.
That's right.
So to speak.
So
by
to
the
speak.
priest.
So I was like that. And then the club sent me away, right? They sent me away to Magnetic Island, up in Queensland. And, for 3 weeks I was there. And I got nice and brown, and I actually joined the rugby league team there to play rugby team. I've had a punctured lung, here I am. And I come back in this white suit, and I've got my gold chains, and I'm looking 100 miles an hour. But I've got to go to the tribunal.
For the grand final.
The grand final. And I go in, and they give me 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And then I said to the club, I said, "What about the footage when he's on my head and whatever?" Go, "Don't worry about it, we won. We won back-to-back. It's the first Hawthorn ever back-to-back." And you think, you know what? I mean, all you want to do is play. And I know I'm going to miss some night games and whatever. And I thought, okay, whatever. Then 1990, sort of in 91, they weren't my best years, because I was just sort of getting up and down. And, but
I mean, by that point, though, you've been a 16-year player. I mean, 91, sure, you only play the one game and don't get back for the finals, but you think you're going to. So the story goes that night before, there's that Glenferrie Oval training on a Thursday night.
I had 5 operations in 91, all bits and pieces. For 6 weeks, I just trained, and I was flying. And finals, here we are.
Born to play in them.
Born to play. I said that once, But let's go back to 1990 quickly.
Yep.
We finished the season. Melbourne beating us in the season, and then they beat us the first final. That was never going to happen 2 weeks in a row. I didn't play that game. Ezzy didn't play that game either.
So you played in round 22, but not the final. Is that right? You played in the game.
Yeah, well, in
Melbourne 2 weeks in a row.
So I dislocated my shoulder against Collingwood.
Oh, right, okay.
Right, and remember Collingwood draw. Right, they drew with West Coast.
Yes, that's right. The first final. Yeah.
So I had another week. So Ezzy had a torn thigh, and I had a dislocated shoulder, and we missed the last game. Firstly, because I was cooked for something, and then no, it wasn't a final. It was just Collingwood. We beat Collingwood by 76 points out of Waverley.
Yep.
And I remember Tony Shaw full on top of me, and he reckons I sound like a squealing pig. That's what he says. He goes, "You sound like a squealing pig." Oh, my shoulder. Oh, but I was flying too. I had 2 goals up. I was playing against Gavin Brown. I thought, I'm going to ride here, And then I missed the games, and then Hawthorn lose that game. Then they lose the first final against Melbourne.
Yeah.
And I said to the Dunce, I said, what are you guys doing? We would have won that grand final easy. Even Lee Matthews says, as soon as Hawthorn were out, he goes, "We're next,"
I suppose Dunstall having a knee through his head earlier in the year didn't help the situation.
And that's because of me too. Because I actually kicked the ball to him. Right. He reckons it was a shit kick. The ball was down low. Yeah, I understand. It was a 65 metre across Waverley, and well, not the funny thing is when he went down, running around, whatever, I ran all the way and got the ball, had a shot for goal, right? And Duds was still thinking about, every time I see him, he's got this little zip there. That's because of me. It wasn't because of me, but, Yeah.
So at the end of 91, you don't get picked for that grand final. I mean, you were telling the story on radio last week that they stuck with Andy Gowers, who's currently running for president, as it happens.
Yeah.
They go with him, and it works out for well. I mean, you're on the coverage on television, 91 grand final with a couple of your old teammates, John Kennedy, who also finishes up.
Yeah, and Swabby.
Yeah.
And with Ian Baker-Fitch sitting next to us, he's a Mount Hawthorn man. And I remember 91, we're all disappointed because, when Coach Joyce on the Thursday night goes, Kennedy, Swab, Dipper, go train with the reserves. And you go, what? You're
not playing. You're
not playing. But you do your teammate thing and Hawthorn thing and off you go and train, whatever. And then I wrote a letter to every player. And as you always tells that story about, we need to win this one and that sort of stuff or whatever. So I'm not out there with you or whatever, a bit of a teardrop on the paper and, because it meant a lot to me, and because I knew I was coming to my end. And then after 91, before the grand final, I rang Lee Matthews, and Lee was obviously the coach of Collingwood. I said, Lee, I'm really disappointed. I want to come to Collingwood. He goes, I don't want you. I said, what? Now listen, I don't want you. I said, come on, man, please. He said, no, mate, I'd love to have you, but let's take a look at this. I can't promise you any games. You finish your year with the reserves maybe and whatever. You've had a great career. You're a Hawthorn person. You're a one-team player. I said, well, if you don't want me to leave, that's it. So I went home and told my wife that I'm not playing anymore, and she was happy and sad. So after the grand final, I went to the club and said, all right, boys, got something to tell you. I'm retiring. They go, good. No. Let me rephrase that. I'm finishing. I'm retiring. Yeah, good. There was no fanfare. There was no nothing. I didn't get a chance to say goodbye to people and whatever. And that was it. And then I made the front page of every paper, right? And this is a cricket part of yours, right? On the inside back third page, there's a little fat picture. There's a picture of a little fat man called Shane Warne about to play his first game for Victoria. Right. And I'm front page, back page, everywhere, but little Shaney, fat Warne like that. And in a way, that's how we become friends over the years. I said, Shane, I'm front page, you little fat man here. Things certainly changed after that, but being the MCG today and looking up there, Shane Warne, we can't believe what's happened. But I spent a lot of time with Shane playing poker and going out and seeing this young man grow up, going to cricket on his tickets and that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's funny how I look back every now and then. There's a couple of bits of paper at home, and I look back and I look back when he passed on, and there's Shane there, having that first bowl as a Victorian cricketer.
I mean, it's a different ground to the one you played on. So you retired, 240 games, 99 in the Rezzies.
Yeah.
140.
The Rezzies were just as tough as the first.
Of course, yeah.
Back in the day.
140 goals, 5 flags, Brownlow, AFL Hall of Fame that comes later, Hawthorn Hall of Fame. Kind of really everything that you can achieve in footy you've done, most of it out here. But, I mean, it is a different ground, right? I mean, but it still has that, despite the cosmetic changes, the new grandstands that have gone up over there in 91 when you were finishing, and over this side of the ground about 15 years ago.
Well, on this ground here, Adam, I've parachuted in twice. I did one live with Neil Mitchell to practice for the grand final.
Yeah.
Now, I was commentating, I boundary commentated here for 15 years, right?
Of course, yeah.
And I parachuted, I jumped out of Albert Park, and I came through the old stand in between the lights and landed, just missed centre square, right? I've hot air ballooned here, all right? And I've delivered the ball here from hot air balloon, 1,500 feet, come down to 500, dropped the ball and whatever. I've commentated up on most of these towers on grand final day. The atmosphere is fantastic. You can see the people coming through. Look out there with the waves of Port Phillip Bay, and the people are just not waves of water. They're waves of people coming our way, Bruce. You know, I was here the night when the stand was on fire. Let's cross down a dipper. Well, Bruce, I'm not quite sure what's happening here, but the Richmond players are stopping now. I think the game's going to be postponed because we can see the scoreboard on fire. I've got Mark Doran here. Mark's going to run up there now, and Mark got up there next to a fireman who's got, so what are you doing, mate? You know, I'm trying to put the fire out, whatever. And then I have the CEO at the time, Wayne
Jackson.
Wayne Jackson. He's had a couple of sherbets, and then people jump in from the seats onto the ground, you know what I mean? And, yeah, this is an iconic time, you know? I was here when E.J. Whitten came around the last time with Neil Curley, my boundary right mate, you know, who's now passed on, and that was a moment, you know. There's nothing I haven't done on this ground, you know.
I mean, it is noteworthy that after you retire, you do have this other life, right? So a lot of people would know you less for having watched you play.
Sure.
And more for having watched you on the telly, being the boundary rider for years and years with Channel 7.
Yeah.
That must be quite rewarding as well that you had this second life. A little bit like Richie Benno used to talk about how by the time he finished commentating that a lot of people didn't know he captained Australia.
That's exactly right.
Now, no one ever didn't know you played in Five Flags. It was always intro.
But people do say, and because I was on the boundary, you've got a tough game this week, haven't you? Yeah, I know. Yeah, I retired 5 years ago, but yeah, I'm sure the boys, you know. And people still say today, oh, how's the boundary going? Yeah, it's going all right, mate. Yeah, going all right. 'Cause every now and then I do a little, you know, bits and pieces for, you know, Fox and whatever. But those days are just coming back to me now. There's so many people. There's so many people. I met George Foreman. I met wrestlers. I met rock stars. You know, because Jerry Lewis, the great Jerry Lewis, I spent 3 days with him on the boundary, basically. It was just great times.
And then later on...
And I could do what I wanted to do.
Sure.
I did Bruce had no idea what I was doing. And Sandy, they had no idea what I was going to do. Let's cross down a dipper and I'll be on the tractor. I'll be having a beer there. I'll be having a pie on a cold day. And they go, Dipper, you got some? Yeah, I'll come up with something, you know.
Just letting your personality flourish however you saw fit. And then you get this other chance. I remember, you won't remember this necessarily, but when you came to Parliament House in maybe 2008, 2009, with the peace team, the Israel-Palestinian peace team that
Israeli and Palestinians together.
And they played, you coached them out here on the G, didn't you? Or
No, they come to the G.
Oh, right.
They actually played at Marvel Stadium.
Right.
So they didn't play there. We actually played around the Carlton area, right? But one night it was a peace team, all the teams going around Marble. That's when Buddy kicked 100 and Fev on 99.
Oh, that night, was it?
Yeah, and I remember because there was a big argument downstairs with my Palestinian and Israeli boys that they would not go under a flag with Palestinian or Israeli. So we had a flag called the Peace Team, which had a dove and then finally because they argued. They said, well, I am not going to be walking under, anyway. Yeah, only because I've been fighting for 3,000 years, right? Anyway, they did it, and they said it was the most beautiful thing they've ever done. I've been involved with a lot of things in football, game development, Auskick. I was there for nearly 11 years, growing that brand, and with the television and Auskick stuff, and international rules, and
and still that deep connection back to the footy club.
Yeah,
I remember 2008 when they won the flag here across the road at Federation Square.
Yeah,
who's going to host it? Well, it's got to be you, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's got to be me. And I remember asking Buddy, are you staying or going? And he goes, I can't tell you, Dipper. Young Buddy, We've had some great moments here at the G. Great moments. I thought, every player will have their own moments. Jezelenko, you beauty,
Manasseh.
Mango's, what's your name?
The running goal, Manasseh.
Phil Manasseh, running goal. Peter Knight's doing a bit of a dance as well, and with some great marks, and that's what this game's about. You don't know what's going to happen, but it allows you to be who you want to be. And as I said to you before, this could make you for the rest of your life. People always remember what you did on the MCG, or it could break you.
So for all of the work you do now, you're on reality telly last year, you've got the host of shows you make with Cbus and Channel 7 these days. You still just come down those 8 kilometres down to the G, watch your footy on a Saturday afternoon?
Well, I don't live 8 kilometres anymore, but...
Oh, where are you these days?
I'm down the beach. I'm down the beachway.
But nevertheless, you still come up in the winter.
Yeah, I do a lot of corporate work here.
Yep.
Where I take corporates and with a couple of other guys, like Sheedy and the guys, in the rooms, and they'll walk around and say, wow, wow, wow. And then I walk out and go, what are these guys talking about? This is my home. This is my ground. And then we talk about the great times of the MCG. So it's always in my blood. Yeah, for sure. Absolutely.
And I suppose you'll always keep coming back. I mean,
watching games here, you sit there and you go, righto, I'm not I used to be a very loud supporter. Now I just sit back and just watch the flow go.
Robert DiPierdomenico, the great Dipper. Wonderful hearing you tell stories about your career, your time in footy, and the great MCG. Thanks for joining the Final Word.
Thanks, Adam. Really appreciate it.